All right, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the session. My name is Vineet Tyagi. I'm the CTO with a company called Impetus Technologies. Some of you may have heard about us, and for the others who may not have heard about what Impetus does, let me take 30 seconds very quickly and briefly tell you what we do. We have been working with Hadoop since almost 8 years, and sometimes I tell people that it was way before any of the distros were incorporated or even set up. So we have been working with the initial versions of Hadoop, the Apache open source project, and using it for our customer advantages. And having done that with several Fortune 1000 companies, we have built a portfolio of product services that has enabled many of our customers to be successful with their big data journey, and many of their projects have been success as well. So today what I'm going to be talking about is based on our experiences, based on our learnings of what has been successful and what has made our customers successful with Hadoop. We've tried to put that best practices and try to put together a set of tooling that we've created, a set of products that we've created that can enable you to be successful with Hadoop, right? So this is what I'm going to be talking in our 30 minutes today, and if hopefully there's time for at the end, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer that. I do have a lot of screenshots. I couldn't do a live demo. Our product is a little bit heavy side on the cloud side, so I have screenshots that I can share with you as to how this 4-click paradigm works and how can you really go from zero to Hadoop in 4 clicks. So as CTO, I get to talk to a lot of customers and prospects. I work with a lot of VP of engineering, directors of engineering, people who are responsible for BI strategy across the customer base that Impetus has. And interestingly, all of them have a challenge that they've been dealing with. And increasingly over the last 2 years, the common and consistent thread that we've been engaged in the conversation is that they have demands of data. There is new data, there is fast data, there is big data, and there is true data. This is my way of saying the 4 V's, but these are the demands on the data side that their business users are making of them, and as a BI or an IT team, they have to respond to that. And the current infrastructure that they have, the current way of working and the technology stack that they have is constrained. Is constrained on 3 important paradigms, or I call it the 3 C's. Is constrained on cost. So to handle the volumes, the new sources of data that they have to handle, it is very costly. It's a costly proposition to handle all of that with their existing technology infrastructure. The other is capacity. They're very rapidly running out of capacity on their BI infrastructure as well, right? So in order to add new capacity is again becoming more costly, and they're looking at the fact that should I be adding more cost on my existing BI infrastructure, or should I be bringing newer Hadoop-based, big data-based technologies into the IT infrastructure, and how can I leverage that part? And the third one is also capabilities. The existing BI infrastructure stack, the way we've been doing analytics, and traditionally the RDBMS, the SQL-driven paradigm, is constrained. It's constrained with certain newer forms of data, newer form of machine learning, predictive algorithms, and other things that other demands are being made of. So, and you may have heard in the Gartner keynote, we are realizing about 15% of the potential ROI on the BI investments which have been made. And how can you accelerate that? So I'll be presenting to you, one of the ways we can accelerate this ROI, rate of ROI return, basically. A lot of our customers are talking about migrating workloads to Hadoop, and this is being a wonderful tactic, I would say, a very successful tactic to handle big data, fast data, new data, true data, which are choking the current EDW, but then you can migrate to Hadoop and bring in newer capabilities into the mix that will allow you to handle all these things in a much more better fashion. So quick question for you folks. Are you looking at bringing in Hadoop in your BI stack, and how many of you are planning projects on that side, which might include any migration capabilities? Fair degree of that. And for others, definitely it's an opportunity to think of another tactic or another strategy where you can actually be offloading things from your current BI and EDW infrastructure to Hadoop. So in talking to some of our customers, what has come across is the primary reasons why some of them are thinking to move certain of their workloads which have been running on the existing BI infrastructure to Hadoop. One of the primary strategy for them has been that they want to free up capacity. They do not want to bring in enough risk to replace everything with Hadoop. They don't want to take that risk today. But they have enough confidence to say that, okay, Hadoop works and we want to be using it to lower our cost. So I want to free up my capacity on my existing EDW side, my BI stack, and contain the cost that I have to incur on handling more data on the EDW side. Now, how do you do that? Because if you are able to do that, there is almost immediate ROI that you can get from Hadoop, right? You don't have to first ingest into Hadoop and then figure out the use cases on Hadoop and then implement those use cases on Hadoop. There's right there value which is sitting there, and it's ready to be unlocked the moment you move the existing workload which was running on a costly infrastructure to a much more cheaper infrastructure. And that will also contain the expenditure that you're making, free up the capacity and use it for some other purpose. You can give it up for your business users, enhance the concurrency on your data warehouse, increase the analytical query space that you might be needing, and so on and so forth. The other important perspective, the reason why they're looking at offloading to Hadoop is that it gives a great multi-platform data warehouse environment strategy. So what that allows you to do is that, this being one of the most talked about, and Gartner has been proposing this for a while, they call it the logical data warehouse architecture, where you have a Hadoop based warehouse, so to say, or capability, and your existing data warehouses and that capability, and together they seamlessly create a strategy for you where you get the capability to run workloads depending on cost and performance parameters that you want to look at. If you want to have very high degree of performance and you are ready to incur the cost, you can run it on your EDW infrastructure. But if you're looking at a lower cost and you're willing to, have some leniency on the SLAs like batch and more of, a few second query response times, you can actually run it on Hadoop. So it's a good way to kind of create an adjunct to your existing warehouse platform. And you also get a platform which is much more better suited for advanced analytics, for more machine learning. It gives you the ability to actually take your existing data assets that you have been running in your EDW infrastructure, that you know what those data points are, take them into Hadoop and then start mixing them with newer forms of data, newer unstructured data, could be social data, could be more third-party data that you capture, and allow more experimentation to happen so that can lead to deeper insights, and that can be at a very cheap cost as well. So basically all these three strategies is the prime motivators why a lot of our customers are migrating workloads off Hadoop, and some of you are thinking about the same. And I encourage the others who are in the journey of taking this decision, that this is a very good tactic to evaluate as well and set yourself up for success. But when we talk about migrations, it's not easy, and migrations are manual, right? They come with a multi-million-dollar price tag, and I don't know, for the folks who are planning to do it or in the various stages of doing it, they're definitely not cheap, and they're definitely not happening in a day or a few days. And some people say Rome was not built in a day or whatever they want to, but Our attempt is we want to build Rome in 4 clicks, right? And that's what I'll talk about, how actually we can take care of the risks and everything and still have a very successful migration as well. I want to take a minute to share an anecdote with you. A couple of weeks ago, we were meeting a customer, and the context, and this is one of the largest automobile manufacturer in the world over, right? And they have fairly large warehouses. They get a lot of data, extremely complicated environment. We were talking to them about one of our other products and service around how to handle IoT data and streaming, sources of data, and that was the context of the meeting. But as you have it, right? When you're in a meeting, there's a corporate presentation deck, and the corporate presentation deck has every line item about what we do. And as a line item, one of this offering, this solution that we have about migrating workloads was also mentioned. Although the context was meeting was different, but somebody just caught on to that and said, tell me more about this workload migration thing. And so we told them about what it is. And they just, the reaction, I'm not exaggerating, was like literally, wow, can you do that? And they told us, long story short, that they just started and spun up a 50-person Java programmer team to write MapReduce code to offload from their warehouse onto Hadoop. And it was going to be a 12 to 18-month project, a long-running program before they even saw the ROI, right? And now we are talking to them, and they don't have to make that investment, and they don't have to wait 12 to 18 months. So let's look at some of the challenges that are there to migrating workloads to Hadoop, and then I'll jump into the 4-click paradigm that we are talking about and how we make that real. So 2 aspects of migrations: extremely complicated process and the technology readiness on the Hadoop side. The nature of complicatedness comes from the 3 contributing factors. One is that you have to manually work and use your expertise to find out which workloads are amenable to migrate to Hadoop. That requires certain level of skill, that requires certain level of trial and error. So there's a lot of investment that goes into figuring out what tables, what data, what queries, what dependent queries, what total workloads can I migrate, and how will I do that. Now the next thing is that, in terms of the process, how will I figure out the data model on Hadoop? What is the data model? You're on a relational warehouse, and this is a non-relational thing, right? Well, arguably you could do a one-to-one Hive table mapping, but that's not the best and the most accurate way to migrate to Hadoop. In fact, that's the most way to do it. Depending on your workloads and how the queries are being executed, Hive may not be the best engine to execute them as well. You may have to use Spark. You may have to store them on an HBase for very low latency querying, and then you have to so basically you have to determine, what is the best practice. And these are not widely known things. These few people have this black art that they can use their experience and, then figure out. So it's not a very widely, practiced art right now. So we've seen many, and we've rescued many implementations gone wrong because of the fact that some people just took the data model that was there on the EDW and just replicated that on Hive and tried to migrate the logic and have that running on Hadoop, and then it just won't perform the way they wanted it to perform. We already talked about that there is the manual aspect to it, and the manual aspect is always risky. It is dependent on skill sets, it is dependent on people, and everybody is different. And Hadoop skills are very rare these days, as many of you would know. Then there's the QA problem. How do you do a one-on-one validation? How do you make sure that all your data and your logic that you have migrated is running functionally, to be functionally equivalent? On the technology side, the ANSI standard SQL compliance of Hive is just not there. Hive is ANSI 92 compliant, and Many of you who are running BI practices, BI managers, teams, or yourselves are practitioners know that, the world has moved beyond that, right? That you're using keywords which are specific to the given, relational data store or whatever technology you're using. If you're using Teradata, you're using a lot of BTEQ functions and scripts that are inbuilt for performance and functionality. If you're using Netezza, you're using that. If you're using Oracle, you're using a lot of PL SQL, and that has no direct equivalence in the Hive world. And in Hive, for example, one of the easiest thing I quote is that you do not have support for insert into, right? And if you're a SQL programmer and you know SQL, you would understand what I'm saying, right? You can't insert directly data as a result of a query, like, select something and insert into a table. You can't do that on Hive, right? There's no support for certain type of keywords and all of that. So all of these technology readiness challenges are there. So let me not take much time and say what is this 4-click paradigm and the 4-click zero to Hadoop paradigm. So again, built on our best proven best practices which have been built on 8 years of our Hadoop experience. We put several customers and we've deployed them in using this tooling into production very rapidly. So the connect part of the tooling basically allows you to connect to supported data warehouses. So we support Teradata, Oracle, Netezza, SQL Server, DB2, and other SQL compliant data stores. And there are many more on the roadmap that we'll be supporting, but the major ones we support today. You could connect directly, or you could give us extract of the query logs or the query itself, as file dumps. And once we have that, we move into the next click, which is assess. What assess does is a full intelligent assessment and identification of loadable entities. What this means is that we have the capability. I was talking about all these best practices around how do you know where to store your data, what is the best form to transform the data model from an RDBMS engine, and how would you store it in Hive. How to structure up the tables, how would the queries be broken up, how would I support the insert into on this table, keywords, because Hive doesn't have a direct equivalence. What about the date and the other, begin session keywords that BTEQ script has that you need support for in Hadoop? So we assess all of that, and we then come up with an assessment report, and I'll be showing you some screenshots that will let you look at the richness of the assessment per se. So we assess and recommend offloadable queries and tables. So what this allows us to do is basically, bam, you have a heat map or kind of a ready reckoner of this is what is there on my warehouse infrastructure today, and looks like this is the easiest way to offload these, and these are the things which could be offloaded. Then we also recommend the query engine most appropriate to meet those SLAs. What this means is that having looked at the query logs, we can determine what is the average execution time, size of the data that query runs on, and what was the average execution time that it has taken, and what would be the best fit on the Hadoop side to produce the same performance. Should it be moved to Hive? Should it be moved to Spark SQL? Should it be moved to Phoenix over HBase? And based on that, then we also recommend the data store. Store this in Hive, store this in HBase, or store this on flat files or other areas. And once the assessment is complete, you could do the next click, and the next click is the auto migration, and that's where we make and take this is the magic, as I call it, and this takes away most of the risk from the manual migration. So we have automated tool sets for migration, and what it does handles all the data migration. We recommend all the data partitioning strategy. We could replicate data partitions as they have been set up in your warehouses. We can understand and figure out what is the right way to do that in Hadoop as well. Recommend the data partitioning, bucketing, and clustering strategies. We migrate the role-based security as well. So all the role RBAC models, which if you, and this is optional, right? This is like, if you want to migrate it, then if you're running on a HTTP cluster, we would provision the same policies and the same things in Falcon and Ranger, so that you can have the same level of access control on the data that goes into Hadoop. We do the workload migration. So we built a rich set of UDF library to support the non-supported keywords. We figured out how to support and do what is the best way to do insert into example I was talking about. So we figured out through our experience whatever it was, that was not supported on Hive, and how to support that in Hive or Spark SQL and fill those gaps and plug those holes. We have the execution part, so we migrate the execution to the chosen query engine. So the logic gets migrated either to a HiveQL or Spark SQL, and very soon we'll be adding support for Phoenix over HBase as well. And then you can schedule the execution of the migrated code as well. And once you've done that, there comes the validation part. And folks, I tell you, this is one of the most critical steps in migration, whether you're doing it manually or through using toolings and services from companies like us. You need to validate that all your data has migrated successfully. You need to establish functional equivalence because your queries are not the same. Sometimes one query or one workload gets split up into multiple queries, and a different way it is structured on Hadoop. So they're functionally equivalent. They'll achieve the same net objective, but they do not have logical equivalence to say that this becomes this, and I can look at it and say, okay, this is done. So this is more of validating at establishing the functional equivalence. Then you have to look at and validate that you're meeting or exceeding, at least, if not exceeding, meeting the SLAs that you were delivering to your business users through the existing EDW infrastructure or your BI technology stack. So we support HiveQL and Spark SQL. There's a choice of execution engine which exists, and I've shared earlier that we built in recommendation, clustering. So all this goes into the performance and the validation of the performance side of things. We also have optimizations, so we can figure out the right configuration, number of mappers based on data source and the query workload and what data you're working on. And then this is something that Hadoop is for. You can scale out on commodity hardware. So this is scale out performance. You can increase your capacity of the cluster as well to meet certain SLAs. So all this validation is also built in. It's automated. We have launched we were in beta. We had announced this last Strata, so we were working and very attractive for a lot of the customers who have come to us. We're working with 22 very big name customers today, helping them in various stages of migration. There's lots of conversations, POCs, active migrations going on. And what has been the success factors there and how they've seen success is that they're able to migrate in days and weeks what they were planning to do with large team sizes, and which was going to take them months and years. So there is very immediate results that they can see. And it is also risk-free, because this is built on best practices. Most of our tooling is based on what we have learned, what we have experienced, and is an end automation result of that. So it's extremely risk-free. What gets migrated and what get the converted workloads are extremely stable and extremely risk-free as well. We are hitting automation levels of about 80% plus in most of the cases, but for other reasons, I'm advised to keep it at 60%. I actually see much more automated results there. And for the remaining, there are certain very complicated queries and certain large scripts which are written which might need manual intervention. And we have services that we can do 100% of the migration per se. We also have a learning engine. So we parse all the queries. We will understand the queries. We may not support a particular construct, but we have a rapid way of supporting it. So, there is a learning engine that can keep learning how the conversion happens, and you can keep adding to that library of conversion as well. There's no lock-in. You do not need, once the code has been converted, it is pure HiveQL. Your programmers, your IT teams can manage that. So there is no lock-in. You do not need the tool to understand the code or execute it on Hadoop. It's pure 100% HiveQL or Spark SQL or Java in case where we are migrating the PL SQL blocks that might be running. So in a nutshell, we've seen we've seen a lot of success. We are helping a lot of big name customer, extremely complicated data warehouse environments with hundreds of terabytes of data, thousands and thousands of query. In fact, with one of the customers we're going to start the migration in about a week, have about 60,000 queries to begin with. 60,000 queries to begin with that are going to get migrated. And these 60,000 queries are not your single line queries of, or a paragraph query. Some of them are multi-page queries, right? They span across 4 pages of SQL code, right? So that's the bulk, and it has taken them several years to stabilize and build this code base of logic. And we anticipate we're already hitting about 76, or that was the last percentage I saw, automated migration. So just imagine the amount of savings we are delivering to that customer, which is starting off immediately. And I invite you, if you want to, test us out, we'll give you a free demo with your scripts. Come to us with your scripts. We will show the conversion and demonstrate the high percentage of automated conversion on your scripts, on your data as well. So thank you, and I'll move to questions. We have about 3.5 minutes remaining, but if you're interested, I'll just walk you through very quickly the demonstration of this 4-click paradigm. This is our assessment tool. That's the beginning of the process. You could upload your SQL scripts, or you could give us the direct connection to your data warehouse, but sometimes you may not want to give this tool direct connection into an operational data warehouse or operational data store. So you can give us the query log, and if you give us the query log, we'll start executing it. So this is one of the very key features. So you are in control of the assessment, and these are some of the levers on which you want to do the assessment. What's your performance tolerance? I want to do 100% match of the query performance I was getting on the EDW infrastructure, or can I live with a lesser query? Like, I was doing everything under 2 minutes there. Well, okay, on Hadoop, I could live with everything being under 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So if you want to go high or you want to meet it, what's your risk tolerance? What is the transformation percentage you're looking for? If you're looking for queries which are 100% immediately migratable, etc. And then we also have something called cost to run. What's your average cost to run? So this can predict the ROI, how quickly we can get the ROI. You can save it as templates for future assessments. This is a summary analysis of the query workloads and all that. There's a lot of detail about analyzing each one of the queries and showing you what was successful, what didn't work. What would fail if you were to migrate, and how we would fix that. You can go deep down. You could keep going, looking at it, how many per types of queries and whatnot. You could go down, and there's a summary snapshot as well. So there's a huge amount of depth of assessment that we do. Just wanted to demonstrate this to you. And if you're interested, and this is our migration capability, a very visual designer to build pipelines of migration. You can schedule them for execution on Hadoop. You can see what's going on. And the one thing I wanted to show you was, you always have access to the queries which have been, you can download them, you can work with them, you can, play around with them. So all of that is available. So I'll take a pause here, another minute remaining. Any questions I'll be happy to answer, or we could do it offline. Yes, sir.
Estimating the hardware infrastructure that would be required to accommodate any given workload.
Okay. That's a very good question. And your question is, do you have a way to determine the capacity that would be needed run a particular workload. Actually, you got me. We are actually building it as we speak in our assessment. Short answer, we don't have it today. We're building it. About 3 weeks' time, my engineering team should be able to predict, as a part of the assessment, what would it take to run it on Hadoop, what size of cluster, based on the tolerance level that you have put in. So I'm at the end, and the gentleman said that he'll come and push me off after 30 minutes. So thank you, guys. Thank you very much.